Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar, the podcast where we take a look at, originally Avatar The Last Airbender, and now we are on Legend of Korra, the third series, which I think is called Change. I always get the series of Korra mixed up because they're a bit vaguer in title. I'm going to go with Change. If that's wrong, I'll yell. I'll just let you guys enjoy correcting me in the YouTube comments. This week we're talking about...
Yeah, because it's... I was thinking Change or Rebirth, but I'm pretty sure Rebirth is the name of this episode.
That's exactly right. Yeah, this week we are taking a look at the second episode, which is indeed titled Rebirth. So, I just realised I summarised this, don't I? For those who don't remember, this is the episode where Korra and the gang get a big old airship from Asami and start on their adventure to recruit new airbenders. And we get a sort of a comedy of errors as it becomes clear that actually the airbender lifestyle, not that appealing to the average Joe. In a very, very funny montage. Then they eventually bump into a small orphan kid who does want to join them called Kai, but it turns out he's a bit of a rapscallion, a bit of an Aladdin sort, a bit of a street rat, doing a bit of, doing some stealing to survive sort of thing. We don't 100% know his intentions, and Tenzin's a bit concerned about him being their first actual recruit to the new airbending thing, but Korra vouches for him, but Mako is like, I've got my eyes on you, watching you. That's just, you guys can't see this, it's a podcast, but I'm doing that motion where I like point, then I do my point back at my eyes, then I point back at the thing. You know that one? Watching you.
Yeah. I'm picturing it so clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Subplot is Zahir is getting the gang back together apparently, and he's gathered his own little team Avatar of his team, not Avatar teams are here, which involves some other benders with some very unique approaches to bending. So I'm going to jump straight over to you, Chris, because obviously season 2 was rough. I think it's pretty clear that we didn't love season 2 at all, which was a real shame and a bit of a surprise for me, who's always had fondish memories of both that season and this show. Season 3, well, obviously the first episode was very much just set up, which is like hard to review in any kind of a, these are the ideas. Now we have to see if they actually start doing anything interesting with them. So it was very hard to decide whether we were improving, from last week's episode. But I think this is our first indication of where this season is going. So I'm very intrigued to hear how you felt about this week's episode.
Dude, I don't know how we're 5 minutes in and you're 3 minutes in probably, because I think there was a bit of technical stuff.
I think we did. I think we did about 3 minutes of. I think it was about 2 minutes in.
And you've recapped the episode. Neither of which we found time to mention the fact that Zuki Poos is back and he's got a fucking dragon.
Oh God, yes. Well, okay. So I'll tell you why that wasn't in my recap, Chris. Shall I peel back the curtain? I originally watched this episode about 5 days ago. Then made all my notes, got ready for it. We then couldn't record at the original date, so I then had to pop it back on this morning. But I only had 20 minutes to watch the 21-minute episode, so I didn't rewatch the last minute.
Dan, let me tell you, Zuki Poos is back, and he's got a fucking dragon.
Yeah. I've got the scene literally in front of me. Oh, I didn't mean to start the sound.
I nearly text you. So Dan and I were messaging back and forth last night, working out what the next few Nothing But Statics are going to be. Yeah. And then I went and cleaned my teeth and stuff, and then I watched the episode. So I don't know, like by the time I watched the episode, it's like midnight or something. And I nearly texted Dan those words or voice noted him. Zuki Poos is back, and he's got a fucking dragon. But it's also, peek behind the curtain, we're recording this from our perspective, the morning of, in the US perspective, the night of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which Dan and I were both getting up to watch. And I just had visions of Dan being like, dude, I know you're getting up at 5 a.m. Fuck are you doing watching this at midnight?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So I also got up at 5 a.m., but I was awake until like 2. I couldn't get to sleep. I was like, my brain just wouldn't turn off last night. So I'm only running on a couple hours sleep myself. It was worth it though. Good Grand Prix. If anyone interested in our thoughts on Formula One. I've just rewatched the last minute without sound, and indeed Zuki Poos is back, and he's riding a fucking dragon. So yes, apologies.
And he's got a fucking dragon.
Yeah, and he's worried. He seems to think that Korra is in danger from this Zahir character. He obviously knows who he is.
Danger. She's been in danger for the last 2 seasons as well, Zuki. But don't worry about it. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, now he's involved. Yeah, sure. Where were you last year, Zuko?
In all seriousness, I think it's quite similar to last week. There's not necessarily like a whole lot to get deep about, but I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was fun. I thought that the sort of them going round being salesmen, like door-to-door salesmen for airbenders, was very funny. I liked the sort of continuing awkwardness with Marco and Korra. I found that quite funny. Bolin's a bit lost. There's not an obvious place for Bolin at the moment, but Bolin got quite a lot of good stuff last season. I thought the villain getting the Blues Brothers in it was quite fun. It told us, each bit told us a little bit about the characters. Where's your girlfriend? We're going to get her next. And then I thought some of those fight sequences, it was quite fun to see them sort of give them the element and then them use the element. There was some inventive shit there, which I quite liked. Some quite good escapes, some quite good visuals. I like the thief character. It's very similar to Zuko. Speaking of old Zuki poos, you've got a character joining the gang, and one member of the gang is like, nope, I don't trust you at all. I'm watching you. And the other members are sort of willing to give them a chance, and but not quite sure. But it is a different take. I think what's quite fun is with the differences with Zuko, the audience knew he was telling the truth. The audience knew he was a good guy. I think there's a little uncertainty with this fella. I don't know if he's about to potentially betray them myself. So I think it's quite a good setup because as an audience we're unsure. I think that's quite engaging. So yeah, I thought that they got a big fucking plane. Cool. We're now at the world of Avatar. I mean, we have nothing new to say on it, but the people that hate the modernization of the world of Avatar, I'm willing to bet definitely hate the kid. Like, we're in a world of Avatar where there's mums who want to get their kids out the basement. Like stroppy young adults and stuff, which but I found that quite that stuff doesn't really bother me. So I found that whole, like I say, airbender door-to-door salespeople I thought was quite fun. So yeah, I had a good time, Dan. I thought this episode was a blast, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I've landed on. I think this is like the first really good episode we've had in a while. Because obviously last week's episode wasn't bad in any way, shape, or form, but it was just doing the setup, which you've got to do. But the setup is never as fun as then what you would then do with the ideas, right? So this week we finally got to actually do something fun with the ideas that we set up last week. And I don't recall. And listeners, I guess, might be able to check, but I don't recall the last episode of this we gave a good review to. It would have been somewhere probably mid-season 2, maybe earlier.
We gave a good review to last week's. We enjoyed last week.
No, I mean like a really like positive. Like not because last week we were like, this was good, but it's but it's just setting stuff up, so it's hard to really. But like, the last time I like really came away having thoroughly enjoyed an episode in like a really strong way. I don't remember when that last happened in this show because season 2 was such a disappointment and such a mess in the end. Even though there were moments of glorious stuff mixed into episodes, I don't think I've given an episode a wholehearted full thumbs up in a good while. But I'm gonna tell you now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I can tell you now. This was, as Chris described it, I think, an absolute blast. I loved this so much. It was everything about this worked. I liked the pacing of it. I liked the character choices. I like where they're going with the overall story. I like this intrigue around this Kai kid. I like the involvement of Zuko because it kind of automatically Zuko feeling the need to get involved really does actually. I know we joked about it earlier, like where's Zuko been, during Amon and like the other, and Unalaq and all that stuff. Like, but that really makes Zahir feel threatening. The fact that Zuko's like fucking getting involved, like jumping on his dragon and he comes, like that's got to be that's got to be for a reason, right? That this guy is a serious threat to the point where he's felt the need to step in. So that it automatically builds up the threat level for the villain this season, and then of course the whole episode is laced with these great action sequences that really demonstrate how dangerous this villain is, like more practically speaking. So while we're doing all of that, we're also having this really fun rompy like adventure, which makes perfect sense. And I just really enjoy the obvious thing of like, yeah, of course they would think that everyone would jump at the chance to be an air nomad, but of course actually it wasn't a particularly exciting lifestyle. It's not necessarily the sort of lifestyle that everyone would choose, and particularly no one, not people who've not grown up in it. Once you've got that culture going, the kids that grow up in it know nothing else, and they sort of adapt to it, right? Whereas if you're trying to get people from like the Earth Kingdom, which is obviously the nearest location to where they started in Republic City, if they're traveling around the Earth Kingdom, like any airbenders, like you want to come shave your head and have very few possessions and live a life of, sort of meek, like peaceful, reflective, meditation. Like it's like no, that does not sound fun. I have a wife and kids. Like it's a really astute but very very obvious observation. But it's like it also doesn't seem so far from reality that Korra and Tenzin might not have considered that people wouldn't want to come, because I feel like there's a world where you write this worse and that's not believable, that they wouldn't have thought of that. You'd be like, come on guys, you're not stupid, you know that people wouldn't be necessarily able to. The way they write it, it really does, their optimism wins out, and you really believe that they believed in it until it started to happen and they went, oh yeah, this isn't going to be fun. And then the solution to that, which is the demonstration of the airbending skills, is like super fun, really great sequence. Lots of great jokes. This episode made me laugh more than an episode of the show in a long time, because again, even in last year when it was funny in the like, oh, Varric is here for 2 minutes, I'm going to laugh, and then it would go back to being less funny and less interesting for 10. So whereas this episode made me laugh pretty much top to bottom. Which is, again, the first time I feel like I've felt that way about the show for some time. So yeah, I had a really good time with this one. This is going to get a big old Dan's seal of approval, recommend, thumbs up, big smiley face sticker, just slapped right over it. Had a good old time.
For sure. Yeah, for sure, man. Like, it was just all... It was a great combination, I think, of lightheartedness, playfulness, but also... the fight scenes, which to deep dive to try and get some specifics, because it's hard. Like I say, it did feel like a middle part. I can really feel that 3 episodes aired in one night with this.
Yes.
I think that's very logical. It felt like it felt like the Act 2 comic relief, light-hearted stuff as well.
Yeah, while you're also sort of setting up the villain. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But which was your favourite fight escape scene? Because I think this is another difficult one where it's like, it was all really good. Like, so to try and get a bit deeper, what was your favourite escape?
Yeah, so we definitely want to break down a bunch of these things, because there's some really interesting. I want to talk more about like Kai's motives, and I want to talk more about like the what's up with where we think we're going with Zuko plot. But yeah, let's laser in on Zahir to start with and his section of the story. And I think in terms of the fight sequences, I think I really like Water Arms Lady. I think she might be my favorite. Yeah, I just think that's a really a really interesting use of that power, because it's not like she's developed an extra skill. She's just developed her own style of using it. It's not a new kind of bending, whereas the other guy seems to be some sort of like lava bender. Do you know what I mean? Like that feels like a new kind of bending. Whereas with the Water Lady, I actually really like that what they've done there is just they've given her a really distinct version of the thing that already existed. And I do like that kind of variation. The idea that any really skilled bender can start to put their own sort of stamp on it and their own preferences in the way they approach it. So seeing those escape sequences, and particularly the water arms, I thought that was really cool. The guy with the fire was also awesome. But the way she like turned one into a hook and like hooked a guy around the leg while she used the other one to knock a guy off the edge of a ledge. I don't know. I just really enjoyed that. I thought that was very good. Whereas Fire Shuriken guy, that felt like almost like a whole new kind of bending. And that's also cool, because it just feels like as well they took feedback with these fight scenes in general. I don't know if you felt that, but it feels like it almost feels like they were listening to this podcast, and I know they can't have been because that's not how time works. But like, we criticized last season a lot for some pretty generic.
That's the reason. That's the reason they're not listening to the podcast.
Yeah. It feels like last season they really like had a lot of quite generic battles. You know, when they were fighting spirits, they would just like not get knocked around, shoot the element at the spirit. It was pretty. You know, they were fairly generic, I thought. And I think the same was kind of true the season before. Whereas here we have like these sequences are all like really creative and well thought out, and I actually really enjoyed that about it. But yeah, I don't know what was your favorite of the two, because I've obviously focused on Water Ramsay. Did you prefer Fire Shuriken Man?
No, I preferred the water bending as well. And I was really pleased to see that, like, you know, they sort of became her arms at the end. Like, that's how she goes about. I thought that was a really cool visual. And it wasn't just, you know, something for the fight. That was something she then kept.
Yeah, that's like her whole shtick.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and even just the different types of prisons as well. Seeing how sort of they'd adapted the prisons for what for the bending skills of the people they had captured.
Yes,
you know, I thought that was really, really clever. You know, the water, I can't remember her name. Apologies, but she was sort of suspended,
like over a
and
volcano
hanging there. So it was over a volcano, so she couldn't like access any water or anything. And yeah, I just thought that was really, really clever.
Yeah, I think the other guy was like suspended well away from any earth. I think that's how they did it with him, if memory serves. Yeah, I never remember those characters' names, to be honest with you. Obviously, Zahir I always remember, but I never remember the other guys.
Wasn't the Earth guy like it was a boat, but it was all wood?
Oh, maybe.
I think I might be wrong, but I think so.
I wouldn't worry, Chris. I've only seen it twice. Don't. My memory isn't failing me at all in my old age.
What are you flicking through?
I'm trying to find the names of these characters. Like, so one seems to be called Gazan, and the other one is called Kai. Maybe no, Kai is Kai. Kai is the young kid. Ryu?
Yeah,
Gazan and Ryu might be the names of the other two. No, Ryu is the teenager that wouldn't come. Gazan is it appears to be. Yeah, he appears to be the Fire Shuriken guy. So what's the lady called then? Where's she? I don't see her name in here at all. It's not fun. Oh, here we go. Is this her? Yeah, she's called Ming Ha or Ming Hua. I don't know. I'm probably not pronouncing those right. As the season goes on, I'm sure it'll sink in a bit, but because I'll feel bad about the fact I keep forgetting. But yeah, I like this idea that Zahir is sort of like has a gang that he's obviously worked with previously, and obviously whatever they were doing previously to get themselves arrested was pretty serious, because Zuko was very aware of what they were up to. They seem to have a pretty fun relationship as well. Like, I like their interactions with each other. They seem to have a good little bit banter. You don't get that in a Avatar villain normally. It's not a thing they've done before.
Well, it's because I think it's because we've never had a. You know, I know there was kind of a team in season 3 for Zuko, but no, because it was more of a team for Azula, wasn't it? But like, I love the idea of team versus team. Like, you know, this is our 6th season of an Avatar property, and there's usually, although, you know, I've made my feelings clear about how strong I think it is in Korra, but there's usually a team Avatar. The notion of a team Avatar versus a team someone is very exciting to me. I that feels very fresh.
Team Avatar versus Team Zahir, I guess.
Seems to hear, yeah. I think that's a really fresh and interesting idea.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that does make this series and this villain feel definitely more interesting, I think, than the previous two villains that we've had on Korra. That's for sure. Who were both like politically motivated, sort of statesman types. We've got some proper, actual, like, seemingly criminals now. You know, whatever their motives are, which we do not yet know. The only thing you can, as an audience member, ascertain about them at this point is criminals of some sort because they're already in prison.
And we're also moving away from the sort of where have we been based?
Republic City. Yeah, Republic City.
Republic City.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving away from Republic City as well. We're moving, like you say, all the other villains have been political. We're moving away from that too, which is quite cool. I know obviously a lot of last season was set outside of Republic City. But I feel like, excuse me, because there was still some sort of political connections with the villain, and it was a bit of a, who's got the right to decide what happens with the Water Tribe thing. I do like, again, that this feels quite different to that, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, and I think, once we've done that, Korra can go back and buy some shoes at New Republic. Sorry, you named a store that we have. I don't know if we have them outside of the UK or if they're just a UK brand, but there's a place you can get shoes, or a brand of shoes you can get in the UK called New Republic. So I couldn't resist. Yes. So yeah. Anyway, I agree with your point though. I got distracted by my own stupid joke.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't tag or say it, but I didn't know there was a shoe brand called New Republic. So it took me. I was sort of paused because I was waiting to hear you explain
wait for me to
it
explain
so that
it.
I understood it.
You wait for me to explain it. That's fair. New Republic, footwear that moves you. I just googled it to make sure I'm not a crazy person.
Oh. Anything take your fancy?
Shall I click? Shopnewrepublic.com. Let's have a look. Oh man. There's a Kurt leather sneaker.
Oh mate, when I think of you, I think of Kurt leather sneakers.
I don't know. They got the nightcap canvas sneaker. I'd probably wear that. I wouldn't go and buy them from them really. I'd probably just get like Converse or Vans or something. But like, I'd wear that. That fits in with sort of the kind of shoe I buy.
Hey, look, I'm not being.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, it's some nice enough
they're
shoes.
very. Look, I'm not fashionable, so
Yeah,
But
they
a lot
seem
of the
pretty
stuff
generic. They seem good. They seem fine.
I don't know. Yeah, they're sort of like. This sounds so bad, and like I say, I'm not the person to go to for this sort of stuff. But a lot of the shoes I'm seeing under like classic footwear seem like really high-end plimsolls. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just in the general men's section, so I don't want a different. Oh, there's a suede version of the Kurt sneaker in red, Chris, reduced as well, down from 100 to 49. Very exciting.
Oh, the new arrivals. Oh, there's some T-shirts. Oh, I'm guessing they do not have my size. Well, maybe.
Okay. Well, there you go. Anyway, jokes aside, yes, I do like being out and about. I do like having left Republic City. I know we spent a fair bit of last season in the Water Tribe as well, but I think having our season focused in Republic City was a perfectly smart thing to do to keep the show feeling fresh and different from Last Airbender. But I think 2 seasons was too many. And I know they didn't spend all of last season at all in Republic City. They only really ended up there for the big fight at the end. Oh no, they did a bunch of stuff in there in the middle as well, because they were... Because what's his face? Bolin was having like premieres for his movers. And they were like,
and they had the sort of
they were like
Wonderland stuff at the beginning, and
well, the Winter Wonderland stuff at the beginning, that was in the South Pole, that was at the Water Tribe.
But it's still different to Republic City.
Yeah, it did. That's what I'm saying. Like, so we're in Republic. So I'm thinking actually there were quite a lot of Republic City last season. We did have a couple of breaks from it, but actually quite a lot of last season was still in Republic City. So this season, getting out properly, it seems like a really nice move. And it makes me happy. So yeah, I think that's a smart move. So let's zero in a bit on Zuko then. So how are we feeling about, like, first of all the visual, seeing sort of old Zuko, but also like what you think his role might be going forward, and what you think. Like, do you think it's going to be a major part of the season, or just like a small role? Like, he has some advice for Korra, and then he pisses off into the night. Like, what do you think? What do you think they're doing? What's the plan? Do you think?
I think he's around for a little bit. I think he's in this fight, and it wouldn't fit. The fight's got to last all season, so it would be a bit weird if he wasn't also with the fight until the end. Mm-hmm. I think appearance-wise, he looks great. It was very clearly Zuki-Poo's. I assume it's a different voice actor, which is logical because obviously the character is a lot older, but that threw me way more than the appearance. I was like, oh, that's odd. It doesn't sound like Zuki-Poo's. Especially because
it would have been weirder if he had sounded like Zuko, though. To be honest with you, with that age difference, you add 70 years to a voice, it would have been weirder because he sounds like a young man.
Yeah, and I know we've got that actor playing Iroh, so that's. And this, he might get brought in because of this as well. Mm-hmm. I like that character. I feel like we've not seen enough of him.
Yes.
But yeah, I was really excited. I was just hearing him called, Lord Zuko. But now it's sort of like there is an element of now it's a bit like, well, do the thing. Come on, we've got give us the Star Wars. We got 2 now. Give us the 3rd because we know has it been Sokka's not. Yeah, we've had it confirmed Sokka's died, haven't we?
Yes, I believe so. I believe we know that Aang and Sokka have passed away, so the remaining of the original Team Avatar, or at least the ones that we haven't had their fates confirmed, were Zuko, Toph, and Katara. We've met Katara, we've met Zuko. Yeah. Toph remains a question mark.
I'm like, we got 2 out of 3. Give me Toph and give me a reunion.
And I think what's interesting, isn't it, is like Toph being my favorite of that original group. It's notable by her, sort of conspicuous by her absence in general, and I think that speaks volumes of her daughter's opinion of her. I think there's, I think there's I think they're. You don't get the impression that might have been necessarily a great relationship. I don't think.
No, which is why it's like, but there's shit to explore there. Do you know what I mean? And there's potentially shit to explore with Iroh and Zuki-Poo's as well. Mm-hmm. And he's got a fucking dragon. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I like to think that's like the dragon that he and Aang hung out with, and like Aang got the blue dragon and he got the red dragon to hang out with. Because they both did that thing where they did the dance. They learned how to firebend from their soul instead of their anger or something. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But they learned how to do firebending that wasn't anger-based by learning the dragon dance. And they danced with those dragons. Yeah. I like to think that at some point Zuko went back to learn more. And the dragon came with him. And that's where he got the dragon from.
Yeah. I think it would be good to see him in action as well. Like, let's see that. Let's see his learnings. Let's see him fight. And then maybe actually if it could be revealed that it's not him fighting, but it's a projection, that would be good. I actually, for those that don't know, I'm a big fan of Last Jedi. That was just me joking, not having an actual dig at that movie.
That was a risky move. The comment section on this video has just officially been fucked. But yeah.
Although arguably he could have been there. Maybe, I don't know. But I still really enjoy that movie.
It's a great movie. So Zuko voiced now by a gentleman called Bruce Davison. Davison. I don't know a lot about Bruce Davison, but he does a great job, I think. I will say just to confirm, this isn't the only appearance of Zuko for the season. I'll say that much.
No, like I said, well, it'd be weird. Like he's clearly got a dog in this fight, and like I say, unless the fight gets resolved, unless the fight gets resolved in episode 8 and then they just randomly continue it for 2 episodes, I assume he's going to have a presence across the whole season. And what show would do that? Goosebumps. I watched the last 2 episodes of Goosebumps yesterday. I know that's not what this is about, but Yeah. Anyway,
Save it for nothing but static, Chris, because we did say at some point we'd come back to cover it on that. So I'm very excited to hear and see it for myself. I've not seen it yet.
I'll tell you, Dan, how they I'll tell you that, and I hate to give opinion spoilers, right? Especially, I hate to taint you going in, but I don't think you'll mind on this occasion. The device they use to extend that story in episode 8, you are not going to enjoy.
Oh God, nice.
Anyway,
that is that is not a yeah. Okay.
Do you want, I kind of almost want to tell you. Do you want to know?
No.
I know it's not.
No, I'll find out myself.
I know it's not the place to, but okay.
No, I'll find out for myself. That's fascinating. But anyway, it's definitely not the place. It's very clear Chris doesn't want to talk about this episode of Korra because he keeps changing the subject.
You took us on a stroll through New Republic's website.
You asked me. You said it really good. I was clicking off it when you asked the question. I had to look.
I genuinely find it tough because I just enjoyed all of it. But I think it's a really great episode. I think it's a really great part 2. But I just, you know what I mean? Like I am legitimately finding it a bit tough because nothing. It is still in a really entertaining good way. So this isn't in any way a criticism. And actually, like, fuck yeah, let's spend 3 episodes setting up, like, and then we're going to be fucking invested, and that'd be wicked. Like, it is still set up. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it is. But I don't really feel. I think there's still a handful of things I'd really interested in talking to you about. I don't know. It's interesting when you sort of
take the lead and ask some fucking questions then.
Well, I did, and then you got distracted and talked about something else. Let's
ask me a question.
Let's talk about Kai. So, for those who don't recall, Kai initially passes himself off with a sob story about his parents having been murdered by marauders, which turns out to be false. Basically, he's looking to escape because he's been an orphan pretty much since birth, and they'd found him a family and he'd stolen from them, and the authorities come to collect him, and they get the money back. And it's Korra that steps in and says, "You know what? We're going to give him a chance because he can have, and I think he just needs some guidance." And what I really love about what they do, for me anyway, about Kai, is the way they set up relationships very quickly for him with every single character. His dynamic with Mako is already laid out. His dynamic with Bolin is already laid out. His potentially slightly romantic dynamic with Jinora is laid out. Korra obviously looking to play a sort of mentor role. It's really interesting that, like, within a couple of scenes, not only is Kai established as a character, but I really enjoyed how we already understood what his dynamic going forward was going to be with the rest of the gang, or a lot of the gang at least, not all of them, but a good few of them. So I remember, even when I first watched this, being really excited by his inclusion. I really felt like he was a good and potentially interesting character to sort of add to the crew, so to speak. So yeah, how did you feel about it in general? Like, in Kai as a character, like, did he intrigue you in any way? How did you feel about him?
I think of all the new monsters on Doctor Who, undoubtedly the Weeping Angels are the ones that I'm joking. I really liked it, and like I say, my favourite thing about the Kai element is I like that you're not even adding a bit onto the joke in case we do derail again. I'm just gonna stay completely silent until you've answered the question, and then I will speak. Look, I think I think completely agree with you about setting up his relationship with everyone. I think that's a really smart move, and it is a good example of, I think this episode is very well written. If you look at the Kai scene, if you look at the scenes of them escaping, the Blues Brothers escapes for What was his name?
Team Zahir.
Zahir. So they don't actually, and we've also got like I said, a door-to-door montage, which includes a comedy bit about a mum who wants their son to get out.
Yeah,
of the house.
we'll come back to that stuff in a minute, because I do want to talk about that stuff as well, because I think there's some really good stuff in there.
There's not a lot of time for any of this. They are doing a lot with a little, and which shows how well the fact that so much happens in this episode shows how well it's written. The fact that we can kind of tell you what the dynamics are with the new evil team. The fact that we can kind of tell you what their personalities are. The fact that we can tell you, the fact that you can list what Kai's relationship is with everyone. It's stunning. Like, it's fantastic writing, this episode. And the Kai scenes are a great example of that. The romance angle with Jinora, the way they animated her going red and slightly sort of sheepish and embarrassed when talking to him was brilliant. It was so sweet, and especially after kind of, because I am right in saying Jinora is the one who was heavily involved last year in the spiritual stuff and all that stuff. Yeah, for the notion that potentially she's still going to get a story this year. They've not forgotten about her. #Justice for Asami. The fact that she's going to get a story, and the fact that it might be something a bit light, it might be a kind of a romantic subplot. Like this is the romantic plot I want to see in Korra season 3. I don't want to fucking see anything to do with any of the Team Avatar. I want to see this play out in like a really sweet way. I want them going on a date, and I want a whole storyline where they're going on a date and Tenzin is following them, but pretending to Boomy that he's doing something else. And Boomy's like, I know what you're doing, brother. And you're being a bit overprotective here. Like, I want a sitcom episode of Tenzin dealing with how he feels about Jinora potentially having a boyfriend. Like, I would love that. Like, I think that would be so entertaining, and I'm so here for it. But I don't know if I trust Kai. That was a big old bag of gold he nicked, and we got ourselves a bison here on this plane. So there's a lot of valuable shit there, and I don't know if I trust him, and I'm excited by the fact that I don't know if I trust him.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously, the ship that they're on, supplied, the setup at the beginning of the episode as being supplied by Asami for this trip, does seem very lavish and does seem, it does sort of give a whiff of money, to say the least. Big airship, big blimp. It's you're right. There's plenty of room for Kai to turn this to his advantage if he wishes to continue to follow that path. There's one line I thought that was really interesting, because I think it's either the start of a really interesting, good guy story, or it's like a complete line. He's going to turn out to be a real piece of shit. And it's the line where he says, "That was the old me. Once I got airbending, I felt like I'd been chosen," or something. He says something like that. He felt, I felt like I'm different now. I feel different now. And I remember really honing in on that line and feeling like he's, that it's either going to turn out to be sincere, in which case it's this really sweet admission amongst all of his other lies, or it's going to be the hint that is the it's going to be the thing that that when he finally turns on them, you go, you really nearly had me with that one, because he did sound really sincere when he said that, I think. But that's the whole point, right? I've got the line here, okay? The person who stole that stuff was the old me. Once I got airbending, I changed. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like airbending chose me for a reason. And like I'm a new person. That, and it's Bolin that sort of reacts to that, and it has a sad face and is like, "Are you taking him back to the orphanage?" And like, "No, he's going to jail." And then for some reason, Korra and Tenzin have the power to be just like, "Leave him with us." Like apparently they can just get prisoners.
Well, he did. They got the money back, which was the thing. Do you know what I mean? They're going to take the money. They're going to keep.
I get that.
No, I'm going. You've got me, Dan. You've found something that I'm gonna go deep on. They've got this kid. He's running around town. He's nicking stuff.
Yep.
He's a pain in the ass for them. But he's a kid. All they can really do, should they arrest him, is keep him locked up for a few days and then send him on his way, and he's going to continue to be a menace. This option, they get the money back, and he fucks off with the Avatar on a big old plane.
Yeah, so you think this is the guards being like, I don't want to deal with this kid anymore. Just where's this airship going? Not here. Great, be gone. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if this show was on the air now, those guards would then go on to get a spin-off series
on Avatar Plus.
Yeah. Which is just them dealing with crime in the city, and it's episodic.
Yeah. Well, no, it's them. Like, it's them not dealing with crime in the city. Like every week, it's them sat on on a corner, and like they're getting communications that there's things going on in the city, and they're like, we'll deal with it later. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
The laziest guards in all of things. They're all just like, I got beat up by the Avatar last week. I don't want to deal with this. I don't get paid enough. I wasn't even supposed to be here today.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about the Mako Korra of it all, because this is one of my other favorite elements of this episode. Really nice moments at the start of the episode. I think like the way they're writing Mako Korra this year is just where was this level of writing last year? Where was this level of like sensible, clever, really functional character work? Right, like it's just really entertaining to see. He's still super awkward. When he brings her the thing at the beginning, he's like, I've got the list of names you requested, Miss Avatar, Miss... he's like being all, like, trying to be all prim and proper because he doesn't want to have an actual conversation with her. And, she kind of mocks him for it, and it feels very natural, but it feels like a really good progression of where their relationship has been. She then asks him to join them. He says no. We've got another element to talk about in a minute, which is this potential reveal about family for Mako and Bolin in Ba Sing Se, but we'll come back to that in a second. He's reluctant to come on the trip. Then when he comes on the trip, we have this brilliant moment later in the episode, which I really clung to as like a really interesting thing. Like it was so simple, and it was a comedy moment, but it was a moment that really told us about where everyone is. And it's the moment when Korra is spinning him round with the air during their airbending demonstration, and she like spins him just a little too vigorously. For funsies, and it's her and Asami having a little giggle while they sort of torture him slightly for being a bit of a shit.
It was Asami's. It was Asami's giggle I liked. Like I thought that was really fun.
So I really get a lot out of the way they're doing this. I mean, this is exactly the correct way to handle love triangle bullshit. Like it's like it feels like the characters have matured. It feels like they've learned something. It feels like they're growing. It feels like they've gotten out of a really frustrating rut, and I don't mean the writers, I mean the characters. We're in a weird cycle of they were just going around these three characters in terms of like who was with who and when, and it was just getting tedious from a viewing perspective. But I think even the characters were sick of it, is the vibe I've gotten. So this choice is new and therefore engaging, because it's the first time any of these plots have developed in a way that since season 1. Like it's all of season 2 is just repeating the mistakes of season 1, like for the characters. So this is an actual evolution of their dynamic, and I really enjoy it. And everything they did with it in this episode was perfect, because having that moment with the airbending, what I really loved about it was that was a scene that was progressing this week's actual plot. That was them doing their demonstration, which is what attracts Kai. So it has a plot function, but while we're having a plot function, we're doing a character thing. And it's like, oh yeah, do you remember sensible, coherent writing that didn't feel like it was written in an afternoon before it was sent off to animators? Do you remember that? Do you remember when character arcs were a thing in this show and they made sense, but they also happened alongside stories? And plots. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the writing is definitely, well, based on these 2 episodes,
yes,
the writing has definitely stepped up this year.
Yeah. And I think, look, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's they had more time and resources, more than, making accusations that the writing team weren't capable of doing something better the previous year. I suspect that, last minute renewals and messing around is, responsible for a percentage of that and meddling from Nickelodeon. We know Nickelodeon never really trusted this show and meddled with it pretty consistently. So I'm going to assume some of it is related to that, rather than asserting, that this team who brought us the original show, which was amazing, and even the first season of this show, which was pretty great, like pretty solid. Like there was nothing broken about it. Whatever went wrong with season 2, we had some qualms about season 1, particularly its ending, but the season on the whole, I think, worked quite well. Season 2 was pretty much just like a interesting idea, and then that idea tripped over a rock and then tumbled down a cliff for 12 episodes. Like, it was just sad to watch. Like, it was heartbreaking, with only one brief interlude of joy middle way through when we got those beginnings episodes, which I still really like. I know that some people aren't as fond of those. And the only saving grace other than that was Tenzin's plot last year. That's the only thing that felt coherent and like it was going somewhere. Everything else was just a real mess. So yeah, this is a really refreshing situation to be in now, where I'm like really on board with what they're doing, and I think the situation with Korra, Mako, and Asami really shows a maturity, both in terms of the writers figuring out how to handle it and where to push it into next, but also doing some fun stuff naturally as the plot is progressing in a way that feels like it's not been like forced into the episode because they needed to do it. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that element of it for sure. Do
you agree with my assertion earlier that Bolin's been a bit? They haven't really known what to do with Bolin in these first 2 episodes. Bolin's just sort of there.
Yeah, we had. To be fair, we had a bit of that last year. Like his side plots about being Nuktuk, hero of the South, didn't really amount to a lot in the end. They tried to squeeze a little bit of drama between him and Mako out of it, but it didn't really amount to much. And then they had the whole Eska plot with him as well, where he was sort of in that relationship but not, and then it was, and then wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
It's a bit weird.
It was a clear story though. Like I don't know.
Yeah, he doesn't actually have. I don't know
what. You could maybe argue the same about Asami, but I would argue Asami, they're setting up a friendship or a story between her and Korra. Mm-hmm. Like the little laugh, the scene in the car last week. Like, so I feel like I can point, and especially now with the Kai and how do you pronounce Tenzin's daughter's name?
Jinora.
Jinora. Tenzin is getting frustrated and wants to find the airbenders. Korra thinks she's going on a fun airbender training mission, and presumably they're about to get pulled into the battle with the bad guy. So I kind of feel like I can point at every character and say what their sort of story is potentially going to be this season. I can't do that with Bolin.
Well, I think this actually comes back to the next thing I said we'd come back to, which is there's a little hint at the start of this episode, and I've got the transcript, so I wonder if I can just find the lines, where basically Mako initially turns down the offer to come on this trip, and Bolin convinces him with what seems like a funny bit, but then you go, actually, what are the implications of that? Which is, drift back. We need you. Come on, Mako. We're going to Ba Sing Se, where Dad grew up. What if I meet our grandma for the very first time? And she asks me, and he does the whole, old woman voice, where's your sweet brother? And he's like, I have to say, I'm sorry, Grandma. He had some really important police paperwork to file. And then she starts crying, grandma tears. And then he imitates the grandmother again, grabs his shoulders. Mako, why? I can't go on. And then, and then he answers, and then she dies. But, so while and then she died really made me laugh. Yeah, it's very funny. So while that's easy to dismiss because it just feels like a joke, actually, I was like, oh yeah, that's actually that seems like a pretty substantial bit of information we're getting there. So they know where their dad grew up, and their parents are obviously dead. They both orphaned, which is why I think immediately Bolin had that relationship with Kai where he trusted him. But also, it's funny, isn't it? That's the exact same reason Mako does not trust him, because Mako was also that kid. So Mako and Bolin both grew up as orphans also, and he knows what a kid like that will do to survive. Bolin, who was protected by Mako, never had to make those choices. Mako always did the dirty work that needed to be done to put food on the table. So Bolin gets the luxury of trusting Kai. Maybe even a little bit because he sees point. Mako in Kai. But Mako, knowing what he was like at that age, does not trust this kid at all. Which is really, really good at both telling us something about Bolin and Mako, but also obviously telling us a lot about Kai. But obviously this idea that they might have family in Ba Sing Se is a new introduction idea, a new idea that's been introduced. And we know they're in the Earth Kingdom, and that's where they're heading. That's where they've been picking up these airbenders to start with, at least. So when you say you don't really know what Bolin's plot might be this season, I must admit, I don't 100% remember where that goes. I've got some scenes that I'm recalling relating to that, but I would say that is probably the most obvious potential thread to pull on. And again, embedded so cleverly because it's just in the moment it plays as that's his excuse to have Mako come with them. It doesn't feel like they're setting up a plot. It's just a natural baked-in moment that's also steeped in comedy because the show is being written well again. It's all happening at once, and it's easy to miss that as a setup. But I do think that's a setup. I'm not going to confirm what I remember.
Which means, and think about the wealth of characters we have here. And I suppose the other one, Tenzin's wife is also there, but she's sort of always. Has
Pema come with them, or is she back at Air Temple Island with the other two kids? Because they set up at the beginning of the episode that the really annoying one, Milo, and the one whose name I always forget, because it's Jinora, Milo, and then the one in the middle that's name I always forget. They've stayed behind in case any new airbenders show up at Air Temple Island. Did Pema stay with them with the baby, or has the baby come with them?
No, the baby stayed behind, but I thought because there's the specific line of Tenzin's sister saying, "Oh, look, it's a fun time with Auntie, whatever her name is," and then the baby throws up and she washes the vomit away. This was in last week's episode. She washes the vomit away with water.
Yes.
Because I remember thinking that's not going to get the stains out though. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't. If someone vomits on you, you don't just run it under the tap. Yeah. So I assume that means his wife. Sorry, what did you say her name was?
So Pema is Tenzin's wife, and his kids are Milo, Jinora, and
with
Iki.
him.
Sorry, I think our line got cut off, so I think we both thought I think we talked over each other by accident. Then sorry.
Oh, sorry, and sorry to the listeners. So yeah, I think because of the whole auntie vomit thing, I think she's therefore with them, but I might be wrong.
But if that was last week, that was before they left. They left at the start of this episode.
Oh, was that not last week then? Was that this week, that thing?
The vomit thing?
Oh yeah, so here's the baby throwing up on Auntie Kaya.
Mm-hmm. Prior to them getting on the airship, right at the start of the episode.
Yeah. There's in that case, that wasn't a point I forgot this week in that last week in that case. It's a point for this week. That's not gonna, like I just said, if someone vomits on you, you don't just run your t-shirt underneath the tap, do you? I don't think that's an effective cleaning method, though.
No, and I thought about this, and I had the same thought, I think, but I did come to the conclusion that maybe she can sort of vomit bend slightly because there'll be water in the vomit. So when she's bringing the water off, I think it's bringing the material with it.
Oh, God. Tenzin and his wife do then kiss, so I don't think she is with them.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she stays behind with Baby, Iki, and Milo. Iki being the child whose name I always forget.
So in that case, every character we're following, and there's a lot of them, we know what their plots are for the season. This is great.
Yeah. I think so too. I think you're right, and I think that's really good. I think they've got clean, clear ideas. They've not overstuffed it, so they're having to just cram every episode so full of stuff that they're not having the time to write any of it well or naturally. They're having, because you know what it was. I think we talked about this a lot when we did the original series, and we talked about it maybe less a little bit in the Korra era. But the hand of the writer, when the writer's forcing something to occur. When you've got too many ideas that you need to get to because you've overstuffed your season, like last year, then you have to start contriving scenarios that feel unnatural to get to everything. And it can lead to things feeling clunky. It can lead to things not feeling natural, and like sort of like this stuff we're talking about this week, where we're getting natural character progression alongside the plot, and the fact that that's like, well, yeah, that's what should be happening. The reason that feels so unusual is because last season was so poorly written, and there was so little of that because they overstuffed it so thoroughly. So yeah, it's been really interesting to see and how much of an improvement this season has been so far. But I really like the idea. I like the idea that there's something potentially going on with Bolin and potential relatives that might still exist out there that they've, because they were poor and living on the streets, they never really went to, they never set out on a pilgrimage to Ba Sing Se themselves to dig into. And I like the idea that Bolin, being the lovable goofball he is, it's the first thing he's thinking of with this opportunity to travel across the Earth Kingdom, And I like that it was enough to bring Mako too. Mako was pretty adamant he was not coming. And that was enough to make Mako go, okay, let's go. So I think it also says a lot about where Marco's at as well. Because he's not coming for Korra. He's clearly doesn't want anything to do with Korra anymore. He's too embarrassed about the whole situation. He's too, he doesn't know what to do with any of that. So he's been avoiding it and deflecting. So for him to be able to suck it up and get through that uncomfortable situation in order to potentially see these relatives tells me that he's also feeling pretty strongly about that possibility and what that might mean.
Yeah, agreed. It's good stuff.
It's really good. I think they've done a really good job. And just to sort of hit on what I think this episode's biggest strength really is, which is the comedy. Even Milo, like one of my least favorite characters in this entire show, when they were like, if Airbenders show up here, they're going to need some guidance from the two of you. It's an important job. Milo's like, those maggots will bow to me. Even that made me laugh. And, Milo's usual level is fart bending. So I was I was pleasantly relieved. I
think that's the only thing missing from this episode, some fart bending.
Yeah. I really enjoyed. I genuinely cannot tell you how much I laughed at all of the montage of them trying to sell airbending to people, from the very quick gags of, you don't get to have your possessions, but hey, on the plus side, you get to shave your head. Like that's all great. But I do also really love the guy. The first guy that's just like, I've got a wife and kids, and his daughter is like, Daddy, is the bald man gonna take you away? That really made me laugh.
I really liked. I'm not getting the line quite right. I'm paraphrasing it, but I like, because obviously the you get to have a bison thing is at the door. Like we see that from the point of view, like the POV of the person he's talking to, and the door slams, and then we cut to them talking as a group about the situation, and it's just Tenzin going, "I really thought the bison was going to swing it for him." That's again paraphrased, but
it's a genuinely funny episode, and I also really really liked the guy that was just like kind of miserable about it, like the teenager one that was like, the stay-at-home kid that the mum just could not wait to get rid of. That's a funny gag. It's an interesting gag, and also like his mum wants him out of the house, but he's like he's got so much ennui. He's so he's so apathetic. He's saying to Korra, like, you don't even have to be the Avatar, And she's like, like, you see this moment of, like, thinking. And then she's like, of course I do. It's my responsibility. And it's your responsibility to help bring the air nomads back. And he's like, no, I can do what I want. And he's like, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, he's got a point. Like, actually, she doesn't have to be the Avatar if she doesn't want to be. She could just abandon all her responsibilities. There is nothing really stopping her. So yeah, I was a big fan of all of that, and then of course they top it off with the show they do to win over people is also very funny. Bolin with the big mustache and forcing Mako to pretend to be like Mako's like, I'm a bandit here to burn your village. Oh no, they're gonna stop him with airbending. All that stuff is great. I also enjoyed seeing Tenzin shirtless. I know that sounds weird, but it made him like,
no, not at all.
It made him. He's always in the robes, right? And I just don't think of him as being. I think of him as being sort of the wise, kindly older mentor figure. But seeing him with his shirt off, with that big ring of air around him, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy is ripped. Like he's a machine. Like that's a fighting machine right there. And of course he is. I don't think we've ever seen it previously. And it just made me remember what a badass Tenzin can be when in a fight. Like, and I know we've seen it many times across the seasons, but it was like a really nice reminder. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, no, it does. It makes complete sense. And I want to see the old guard. I know we've seen it, but I want to see Zuki-Poo's Tenzin. Do you know what I mean? I want to see them in battle. Iroh. I really hope. I hope this means Iroh, as in General, as in Zuko's son, Iroh. Yeah, grandson, Iroh. So not Spirit World, Iroh. I really want to see. I hope Iroh comes into this, and just see everyone. Give me that Avengers lineup shot. Why not?
Yeah, it would be fun to get the gang in, have Katara turn back up or something, and as you hinted at earlier, the idea that we still don't. Toph is the remaining. She's the last question mark. You don't know if she's still around or if she's passed away. I do feel like though, I will say, going into this show, I always like, if any of these idiots died young, it's Toph. Like, because I feel like Toph would have had the attitude of like head first into any situation. That's eventually going to catch up to you. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like even Toph wouldn't have minded that. Like, Toph would have a line like, die young, leave a good-looking body. Like, I feel like that would have been Toph's attitude. So I when this show was announced, and I knew it was after Aang's time, but only just obviously because we were the next Avatar. I was like, theoretically, it's possible any of the original gang are still around, but as elderly characters. I never thought Toph was going to be one of those going into this show.
No, but I didn't really.
One. I always just assumed Toph would die young. I don't know why.
I was just thinking about that though. I think it's a real. I know we had our problems with season 2, but it's a real testament to this show that some spin-off shows. Every episode you go in like I don't mean to be a dick, but a lot of the Marvel stuff, like especially if you think about something like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., bless them, like you're just watching it going, oh, are we going to see Nick Fury? Are we going to see a character from the MCU? Are we going to hear references? Like I think the reason Zuki-Poo's was such a pleasure was because I wasn't even expecting it, and the reason I wasn't expecting it is because I don't go into every episode of this show going, give me some references to Avatar or give me a character from Avatar. And I think that's a real testament to this show.
Yeah. Yep. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I think that you're so engaged with these characters, particularly now they've got these really clear sort of through lines that we're sort of latching onto and enjoying seeing develop across episodes. These dynamics that are developing that are really lending into and complementing the plot. It's starting to sort of fire on all cylinders, and you sort of you almost don't need it to be the thing to engage you, because you're engaged enough in what they have, what they've built on their own, not just relying on member berries. Remember Zuko? Yeah, I remember. That whole thing from South Park. You remember Katara? Yeah, I remember. That's the. If anyone remembers that season of South Park where they had the member berries, but the South Park member berries just did Star Wars ones. Remember TIE Fighters? Yeah, I remember. So yeah, it's really, you're right. It is a testament to the show that I just having watched it just a few days ago wasn't coming into this conversation with Zuko being the headline of my thoughts.
Yeah.
I talked about the plot and the content of this episode and forgot Zuko shows up at the end. And also, exactly. I think even once he's in the show going forward, I'm going to be talking about his impact on this show's plot, not just being excited that he's back. Because the plot of this season is interesting. One thing I forgot to mention, just a small thing, with Zahir, he had a line this week that I really liked, and I think it gives a little hint of what kind of character he is, because we still don't really know what his deal is, right? There's not a lot of information going on about Zahir. We got the idea last week because he quoted some ancient airbending wisdom that maybe it's an ideological thing he's after. But he said something interesting this week. He said, "I was given a gift I believe it means our path is a righteous one. So what that tells us is this is potentially a man of faith of some sort. He feels the universe is whatever thing he's intending to achieve. He thinks the universe has just given him the okay to do it based on being granted airbending. And it's a subtle line, it's a quick line, but it actually tells us something more about the character than we knew last week, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I think...
I just want to pick up on that.
And I think that's intriguing. And I think there's more to flesh out with them for sure, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think, I don't think it needed to be that this week. This week it just needed to be some cool shit of them escaping from prison and a bit of a hint as to what their characters are, which I think they did, and they definitely hooked people in.
Yeah. So yeah, big recommend this week. It's a good episode, really good episode. And the headline thought, obviously, Zuko's back and he's a badass. Just to contradict everything I just said about it not mattering. Yeah, I don't have any more notes. Do you have anything you want to add, Chris? Or are we headed on to trivia?
No, man. No. Let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia. I think one week, Chris, I'm going to jump in with let's triv it up and make you say my line as a balance.
Oh, happily. Yeah.
Let's maybe we'll do that next week, or maybe we won't. Little tease. Come back next week to find out.
I think you all know it depends very much on whether we remember.
And with that being the reasoning, you'll probably not. Just probably not. So, Team Avatar's position was shown on the map as they travelled throughout the Earth Kingdom. Their heads were in the chibi form, which is the big head with the small body, sort of cutified. Yeah, we haven't seen that. I think, have we seen their chibi forms before? I think we have. I think someone did like a bubble flashbacky thing, and there was chibi versions of the characters, or at least we saw that with Aang and the original gang at some point. This is the third episode in Legend of Korra, whose title is only one word. The others being Endgame and Peacekeepers. Yeah, so Endgame, Peacekeepers, this one, and then there are two more before this show comes to an end that have single-word titles. So this show does 4 seasons and has 5 in total. Last Airbender only contained 2 episodes with one-word titles, Imprisoned and Jet. You can tell there wasn't much trivia this week if I included that one. The creators...
And can I just say, #Justice for Jet.
Justice for Jet. No, I'm sorry. I can't have Justice for Jet get in the way of Justice for Asami.
No, that's fair, but, that was a shit show, the Jets, how they ended the Jet storyline.
Yeah, it was. It really was. That's again, though, Cartoon Network's fault. Cartoon Network's fault.
Oh, yeah. I'm not, yeah.
Anyway, so the creators wanted to show that new airbenders that could come from anywhere, so they wanted in this episode, in the montage, to include airbenders from Fire Nation, maybe the Water Nation, but basically, because of the timeline of this episode and the way it sort of had to track with Zahir, they didn't feel like it would have been realistic to have, because it took Aang like seasons to get across the world. The entire of season 1 is just going from the south to the north. So I think they felt that it wouldn't have been very realistic. And while it would have set up better that they are everywhere, they kind of stuck with the notion that, well, the Earth Kingdom is the nearest. Well, I suppose no, Republic City's right on the edge of the Earth Kingdom. It was a Fire Nation colony because the Fire Nation expanded. It's next to the Earth Kingdom. So yeah, so they will have. That's why they've gone there, and I think that makes sense. So yeah, I think they made the right choice. Even though it would be nice to have established that they're all over the world, I think they've done that in dialogue. And I don't feel like I needed to see it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because I'm sort of weighing up in my head the slight irritation of, well, they're traveling around the world pretty quickly, aren't they? On that airship that seems to move slower than a bison. Took Aang a season on a bison. Just saying. Yeah,
but it's not as easy to do scenes on the bison, is it?
No, but I mean, I guess that's my question. Would you have been bothered by that if this week in that montage we'd have then had glimpses of them in the Water Tribe or in the Fire Nation talking to Fire Nation people about joining the Air Nomads? Would you have been a bit like, how long did that take them? You know, like, what's the timescale for this? Or would you have just not bothered? Would you have not thought about it?
I don't think I'd have thought about it, but when you if you'd have brought it up on a podcast, it would have annoyed me then. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting level, isn't it? Of like, sometimes with these shows, you're just enjoying them enough that like stuff like that will wash over you, and it's only if you're forced to record an hour-long podcast about it at a later date that you go, oh yeah. Right. So it's time, Chris, for feedback from last series.
Feedback from last series that we didn't respond to at the time, but we're doing it now.
Hi, and welcome to Feedback from Last Series. I'm your host, Dan. This one is a question specifically for you, Chris. Last series, we talked about Chris did a play. He was doing a play at the time. And a couple of people wrote in, but I pulled up one particular one. Teflon Fury wrote, I believe, in our Discord. How did Chris's two-hander go? Just listen to the last two episodes of Korra. Lol.
Ah, nice.
So they want to know how it went.
It was intense. We only had 6 weeks to rehearse, and on one of those weeks, we did a weekend's worth of podcasts, which was, luckily I was going away at the end of it, so that's the thing that I think pulled me through. It was some poor planning on my part, but we got there. I think the second week of shows, the American accents didn't really ever improve. Thank you for asking, by the way. That's very, very sweet. The second week of shows were definitely better, in my opinion, than the first week's worth of shows, because the lines were just more. I was more confident on the lines. Like there was only ever, I think there was one prompt needed, but it wasn't heard. So it didn't matter too much audience wise. But I think we were most confident with the lines in the second week. It got a lot of good feedback from people. It was something very different for the group that I do like stuff with. Like apparently, Jess heard someone when she went to see it. She heard someone at the end, this little old lady, get up and go, "Maybe they've changed the people who choose the plays." It says a lot about, because it was more violent than anything we've ever done. Like like it was more intense and stuff. And there was a lot of running around. Connor, friend of Nothing But Static, he saw it and he said that he thought I was acting for Act 1. But in Act 2, when the character's going a bit crazy and running around making toast, he felt he was just watching me make toast, which, is either a compliment or an insult. But he saw it very early on. It wasn't, in my opinion, in the shape it could have been to the end. But I give the person I was doing it with, who's phenomenal. Like he's so good. There's a lot of, when you see, and obviously this is a fucking amateur dramatics theatre production, so I'm not comparing it, but in terms of the essence of what's being said, when you hear people like actors on talk shows and stuff, and they talk about working with someone, and they're like, oh, there's just so much trust there and freedom to experiment, and it always sounds a bit wanky, but it is true. Like Sean and I were often a little bit all over the place with lines, but there was a lot of trust and faith in the other one to weave us back, and I couldn't have done it. He'd never hear this, and this, I don't know how interesting this is for people, but I couldn't have done it without him. And he was fucking brilliant. He fucking outshone me every single night, and quite rightly. He was fantastic. So yeah, no, it went well. It got good feedback. And I'm so exhausted. I've turned down auditioning for the two plays after it, because I'm still knackered from it. But that's fine. Like, I did a lot last year. That's okay. So yeah, thank you very much for asking. That's very, very sweet.
I mean, my big question, because it was the thing we really zoned in on. Did you adjust the accent after we spoke, or did you ploughed on?
No, that was the accent. Let me try and think of a line to remind people.
Because it was glorious. It was, but maybe that might have been its own problem.
What, the accent?
No, the fact that I like that it was because I said it was glorious. It was a big part of our discussion, but that might actually kind of be its own that might not necessarily be the compliment it sounds like. Do you know what I mean?
No, a lot of people. So let me give a preview. Let me give, for people that didn't listen. Let me think of a line from it. The lights in people's houses. We're living in a fairy tale down here. We forgot about that. Yeah, so that's it. It was as bad as that for the entire thing. But a lot of people, I think someone said, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I was like, the accent's terrible, and they were like, nah, the accent was good. And they were like, and I was like, nah, it was terrible. And they were like, look, was it a particularly strong American accent? No, but especially in Amdram, what you're actually after is consistency. Bad accents are at their worst in Amdram when they're all over the place and not consistent. And they were like, yours was consistent. So therefore, it was good. Because once you go, well, that's the accent, then it's fine. So,
I like the idea. But also, at least it was consistent. And you almost hear like the sarky bastard behind him being like, consistently shit.
Yeah, but also, I don't think it was that consistent, because basically, for most of Act 2, the characters are drunk. And I found the accent much easier when drunk. Like, because you could just, it could just be a bit, I don't know, like, messier, I don't know. But yeah, so, like, that bit I just did, which was bad, was from a bit where they were drunk. So yeah, I think, well, Jess is here. Jess, what would you... how would you rate, or what would you say about my accent in True West?
It got better.
There you go. It got better.
Would
you say it was good?
A ringing endorsement.
I just asked if it got good, and she went, There we go. Thank you for the cup of tea. She's awkwardly left.
To avoid being asked more questions she doesn't want to answer.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good. I'll admit that. But yeah, so there we go.
No, I'm sure you did great. I only ask you because we talked about it and laughed about it quite a lot on the podcast last year. No, I'm glad it went well. I think look, everything I've heard makes it sound like it went very well. So I'm glad you were able to do it and that it went down so well. I'm sure you nailed it. I'm sad I didn't get a chance to see it for myself. But the schedule.
I do. I have a video, but I don't want to send the video to anyone, because the video was filmed on a dress rehearsal, and I mean, I was in such it was even the cast are like, where's the fucking video? And I'll tell you, dude, I've got it, and I've had it for about 2 months. But I'm like, every time I go to send them the link, in my head I go, oh god, I'm so shit. Like, and I will send it to them. Like, I'm not gonna send it. I'm not gonna not just for that reason. But there's a bit where I'm meant to scream at the end. I'm meant to scream something like, "Give me the keys!" And for inexplicitly, no reason at all, I yelled my own character's name. Like, that particular, it was really bad. And I paid for that to be filmed out of my own pocket. Tragic. So, I don't know why I'm bringing it up, because I'm not going to send it to you.
No, but you should send it to the cast if they're asking for it. They
The people, you mean the people that worked very hard on something, who weren't. It's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, that's my overwhelming. That's my overwhelming feeling on that. But yeah, lovely stuff. As that answers that question, thank you, Teflon Fury. I think that's who it was. I think I've moved it out of my notes now, so I can't see it anymore. I removed it so I wouldn't reread it next week, because I've made a bunch of. So I don't have to look these up every time. I've put a bunch of these into my notes ahead of time now. And speaking of my notes, actually, someone was just like, stop using Apple Notes. Yeah, good point. I've switched. It's correct. There are upsides and downsides to all of the various note apps, but the Apple one was big, really inconsistent. So whoever it was that said just please move over to like Google Notes or Docs because it's coming up a lot. Did it. Right.
Fair point.
Which is fair enough. So that is everything for this week. Thank you everyone for listening. Obviously, if you want to hear next week's episode, The Earth Queen, a week early, you can. Do you want to know how they do that, Chris? Are you interested?
How do they do that, Dan?
They do that.
I care deeply.
They do that by emailing me their own Southern American accent impression clip. And the best one gets access to it a week early.
I mean, you should actually do that.
Don't do that, please. I'm kidding. No, send them to Chris.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, I'm kidding. No, the way you do it is you join our Patreon, obviously. So for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to our Patreon, which gives you access to this podcast and our other podcast, Rewind Reviews, 1 week ahead of their normal sort of public iTunes, sort of Spotify release. It also gives you access to our bonus podcast, Nothing But Lyrics, which is always good fun, where we take apart the lyrics of a popular song, sometimes to make fun of them, sometimes to try and make sense of them, often both. It's good fun, and every episode has been wildly different from the others, totally, and I've had a really good time doing it, and I shall continue to have a good time doing it. So that's that. It also gives you access to our Discord, where you can ask questions. And of course, since you know we're doing it, feedback for last series. If you want to be on the feedback for next series, which will be our final series for season 4, then please get them in now. And how you do that is you can either get us on mail at nothingbutstatic.co.uk or head over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/nothingbutstatic. UK? Yes, so it's youtube.com/nothingbutstatic UK will take you to our page where you can find this very episode on the YouTube channel and comment underneath, and those are where I've pulled most of this year's comments or feedback from the last series on from, because this series will definitely be recorded before it starts airing, so there's no way any of the feedback from this series is getting into this series because we're quite far ahead. I've just jinxed us to fall really far behind now, haven't I? Oh well. So yeah, that's how you would do that. Other ways in which you can support us if you're not interested in supporting us on the Patreon, which is absolutely fine, is just to keep listening. Or if you're interested in doing a little bit more than that, you can, of course, like and subscribe or review on the various platforms on which you can engage with our content. Anything you can do where you can push a button and you can write a review, or you can poke it or like it or heart it or something like that, please do that, because that does support what we do, and it tells the various algorithms that you liked what we're up to. So yeah, going to continue to recommend people do that where they can. And of course, if you know someone who watches Avatar and likes Avatar or Korra, you can always recommend us to your friend. Just say there's a podcast I enjoy. And if you don't like this podcast, then I'm really sorry, because you've listened to nearly 100 episodes at this point, and I can't help you.
Yeah, it's a big commitment if you don't like it to listen to us ramble about a play that took place in the past.
We're in like 80 minutes. We're like 80 episodes in at least, nearly 90. I think you need to rethink the situation. Do you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. Mm. That's.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fair.
Yeah,
but grateful. Grateful for the listens.
100% grateful, but don't do it to yourself. It's just if you hate listening at this point, just stop. It's all good. We love you anyway.
We don't mind.
We do not mind. I've just checked. Where are we? Okay, yes, so no, we're much closer to 100 than I thought. We are officially, Chris, 87 episodes in.
Oh wow!
To Analysing Avatar. This is the 87th episode.
Exciting.
So next season we hit 100.
I'm enjoying it, and it might not be the last series. I can see us giving a generic review for Nothing But Static of the whole season of the live action, and then doing a episode by episode on here. Why not?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we handle that, because obviously it's going to very much depend on schedules and timing, and I know the live action show is coming out before this goes out. So by the time people listening to this, the live action show is available, is my understanding, if I've worked out the dates correctly.
Yeah, I think review it on the podcast. I think review it on the podcast. Chuck that out. Chuck that review up on the feed for analysing Avatar,
Mm-hmm.
and then also do an episode by episode when we're done with Korra.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good point. There's no real reason not to do that, is there?
And we've got, aren't they doing like 3 animated sequel movies or something like that?
Yeah, there's stuff in the works. We don't know 100% what. Lots of rumours and things about. Yeah, but they're definitely doing stuff. There's a whole Avatar Studios that's been kicked back into gear, and a bunch of productions have started to get underway. We don't 100% know what they are, but rumours are abound about all sorts of spin-offs and continuations and adult Aang stories and all sorts of stuff people are talking about. I don't think we know 100% what it is they're working on yet. Not for real. A lot of reported leaks, but I don't think anything has been. I don't think Nickelodeon and the studios behind it have outright said yet what the projects are. The rumor I think was there was a Korra one, an Aang one, and then a future Avatar one. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a Kyoshi one. Just tell the story of those books, because the books are really good. So maybe just do that. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, I mean, you're right. There's no reason for this to be sort of ending. But yeah, in terms of like covering the original 2 shows, will be by the time we've done the very last episode of season 4 of Korra, we'll be on 111 episodes, and it'll be in late 2024. So that's nearly a year away.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so we won't be reviewing the new Avatar show episode by episode, if we do choose to do that next, until January the 14th, 2025.
But it will either on this feed or on Nothing But Static. There will be a review of it as a series whole.
Yes, yeah, we'll review it for Nothing But Static, and then we'll put it on that podcast, and then we'll stick we'll cut out that clip and put it on here. But yeah, anyway, that we are at this point absolutely rambling. Thanks everyone for listening. You're the best. But that's everything for this week. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you in a week's time when we sit down to review The Earth Queen. Not the episode. We're going to actually review the person. We're just going to talk about her and review her.
Couldn't even do the outro without rambling, could you?
Nope.
Unbelievable. And you accused me of derailing things.
At least when I did it, we'd already finished watching finished talking about the actual episode.
Yeah, but there's still some poor people listening, aren't there? Hi guys, thank you. I mean, wow, thank you.
Yeah, this one got out of
We
hand.
applaud you.
Bye.